edition of our Thursday night's class. Gmar Chatima Torah, Tiskulu Shanim Rabot, Neimot B'Torot. Tonight's class was sponsored for the Refuah Shlema B'Mhera Avroma Rachamim Ben Frida. Hashem should send all his tzarot Sonei Yisrael, and he should be happy and healthy at 120. So we're in the middle of Aseret Yimei Teshuvah. It's big. Every day corrects the day of the year. We spoke about it in the last shiur on Rosh Hashanah. Very big. There's a sefer called Rav Tov. So in Parashat Balak, it's brought down a story. And this will be the theme that we're going on tonight. It's also brought down in another sefer called Menorat HaZahav in Parashat Pikudei. It's a very known story. People think it's a parable. This was an actual story. We spoke in one of the weeks that there's a concept that I don't really know what it means, but I just know the theory of it, called Aliyat Neshama. There were tzaddikim, righteous people, that had the ability to take their soul out of their body and go up to Shamayim and see what's going on and then come back. People that know how to go on a one-way trip up, that's very common, but to be able to go up and come back down, that's already a skill. And there were many tzaddikim throughout the generations that were able to do it, and many interesting secrets of the Jewish nation were revealed that way. One of those great tzaddikim was Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev. Zchutei Yagen Aleinu. He was able to do this. Another known person that there's a lot of stories about that used to do this frequently was the Rebbe of Zusha Me'anipoli. These were tzaddikim that when they wanted to know what's going on or what they have to say or what they have to do to accomplish whatever they do for the Jewish nation, instead of speculating or guessing, they would go directly to the source. They'd go to God and see what's going on, and based on that, make a decision. It's a modern day version of Urim V'Tumim. So, Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev used to do this on Yom Kippur. Abzush also as well, by the way. On Kippur, they would go upstairs and see what's going on. And the reason why they used to do that was because they wanted to know if there was something that had to be corrected, or if the Jews didn't get a good enough decree, or whatever it is, to be able to be poel in Shamayim for Am Yisrael. So one year, Rabbi Yitzchak goes up to Shamayim on Yom Kippur in the afternoon, and he sees what's going on in Shamayim. And this is what he saw. He sees swarms and swarms of black angels, which you never know what that means. Malachei Chabalah, that were created from the sins of Am Yisrael. And they look like they're a whole army. It looks pretty bad. And right away, he's very nervous. This is not looking so promising. But then he sees, coming from the other side, is the righteous angels. We'll call them the white angels. The malachim that come from the mitzvot. And mitzvot Am Yisrael is not lacking, right? We know, the Gemara teaches us, Brachot and Zayin, that filu poshei Yisrael meleim mitzvot karimon. Even the criminals amongst the Jewish nation, even they have mitzvot. They're filled with mitzvot. By the way, you have to understand what that means. If the guy is maleh mitzvot, he's filled with mitzvot, so why is he called the poshei Yisrael? This quote is everybody knows this quote, but we never pay attention to what we're saying. If a guy is full of mitzvot, so why is he called a Poshei Yisrael? And if a guy is not full of mitzvot, so what, we invented mitzvot for him? The Ben TISHREY asked this question. The Ben TISHREY says a very interesting answer. He says, why meleim mitzvot karimon? They're filled with mitzvot like a pomegranate. So naturally we think, because a pomegranate has many seeds. Guess what? There's so many fruits that have more seeds than pomegranates. So if the idea is to show an example of a lot, so there's so many other ways to show examples of a lot. The other answer is that there is an opinion in Chazal that a rimon, today it's not like that, but I guess in the times of the Beit Mikdash maybe it was like that. A pomegranate has 613 seeds. So that resembles the 613 mitzvot. Once a guy in Israel told me a story, I don't have to believe him or not, but he works as a chef in one of the hotels in Tel Aviv, in the Dan Hotel. And he wasn't religious at the time, and he went to a speech. It was right before Rosh Hashanah. Somebody convinced him to go to a speech of a rabbi, and the rabbi said that we eat rimon on Rosh Hashanah because rimon resembles 613 mitzvot, because And the rabbi didn't give the disclaimer that today's pomegranates are not like that. This guy said, a bunch of stupidity. What? The limon has 613 seeds? Impossible. This is what he claims. I'll tell you the truth, I have trouble believing it, but this is what he claims. That he went to work the next morning, and he's in the preparations of Rosh Hashanah. He's a chef, a head chef of a fancy hotel. And he takes a pomegranate, and he peels it gently, and he says he's going to count. He's going to count. I don't know why they didn't fire him from his job. And he's sitting there counting pomegranate seeds, and he says he got exactly the 613 seeds, and it was done. He said that second, he dropped everything, he said Hashem hu Elokim, and from that day on he became Baal Tshuva. 100% Shomer Torah Mitzvot. But honestly, after he told me the story, I tried it once, and there was a lot less. But so that's why I have trouble. But could be Hashem made him a nes to bring him back closer, made him a special nes. Crazy story to think about it. Exactly that. But in the times of Chazal say there were 630 seeds in the Rimon, so that means there was such a thing at least once upon a time. But anyway, so the TISHREY says, why a Rimon? So the TISHREY says an interesting thing. He says a pomegranate, the taste and nutrients and so on, doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the inside part of the seed. And he says if you look, it's true. If you take a pomegranate and just look at the seeds, so they have a color which is relatively bright, light and bright. But if you squeeze the same seeds, and now you have a cup of pomegranate juice, the juice is a bunch of shades darker. You ever pay attention to that? Simple. Think about the limon you ate on Rosh Hashanah and the last time you went to buy pomegranate juice, and see the contrast in color. I'm sure there's some sort of scientific explanation to it, but the Ben TISHREY says that's why we use a limon. There's two types of mitzvot. There's a mitzvah pnimit and a mitzvah chitzonit. There's a mitzvah that a person does, but he does it in a very shallow way. Either not purposely or not for the intent. Most Jews are very good people. All Jews. If you see the help that goes on in Israel, I'm not talking about in the Haredi world that we could write hundreds of books on probably. Over the years, I've spent time in different situations reading phone books. Normally when I say that, people think I should plead insanity right after. Who reads a phone book? But not the regular, whatever, I don't know if they still print phone books in the US. The Haredi phone book of Bnei Brak. They published their own phone book, so it shouldn't have any ads in it or things that aren't, up to par. And the reason why I don't read the whole phone book, there's one part in there that blows my mind away every year again when I get the new edition. Under the subtitle Gemach, Gemilut Chasadim, at least in the last one that I had, those last years that I looked at, I don't remember the exact number, but I definitely remember there was over 70 pages of different chesed operations. And not one guy on a page. This is names and phone numbers. Lists and lists and lists. And we're talking about probably thousands, maybe even more than just thousands, of Gemilut Chasadim just in one city, in one small town. But this is not only there. Am Yisrael at large. You see what goes on, we should never need to see this again, but during times of terror or war in Israel, the beauty of the Jewish nation shines in a way that's unreal. In like Tzuk and other operations that Israel had to go out to in the summers of the years, we've seen random people that would just close their shops, close their jobs, close everything, and just go out to the areas where the soldiers are, which are combat zones, just to bring them food, to make sure they have what they need, to take care of them, to give them money, cigarettes. Nobody does that. Unreal. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And from place to place. And I hear this sometimes from the soldiers' impact. I actually had a wonderful story a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago by now. I was speaking somewhere to Israelis in Hebrew. And I will admit, when I go to speak to Israelis, especially secular Israelis, it's very exciting for me. Because when we come to speak in the American communities, so people sit nicely and they listen and they smile and then they say thank you very much, very inspiring, and they leave. So you don't know if you made an impact. It might have worked, it might have not, and that's where it ends. Israelis are very passionate people. And when you say something they don't like, they let you know right then and there. And they don't filter what they say. They say it as it is. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm actually saying that as a positive. They're not two faces. They say the truth straight to your face. And there's an interaction. It goes back and forth. And then at the end of the night, there's the winning side. And there's the other side that admits that they're wrong. And then there's actually change. Something happens. There's an outcome. So I'm speaking in this random place, and a group of Israelis, I'd say about 200 of them, all after the army age, like 23, 25, whatever, they come to the U.S., to different towns. They work in malls, normally in carts in the malls, selling Dead Sea products or whatever it is. You know, we got stalked by one of them. You want to try this? You want to try that? They'll sell you whatever you want. They're good, these kids. You know, if they were able to fight wars when they were 18, they can sell you a couple of creams. And so one of the bosses that has a very large group, business, a network of these guys, so asked me to say a few words to them. So one of the usual attacks is, why don't the religious serve in the army? Which is a false accusation. We addressed it in the past, but let's say there was truth to it. So I was about to answer, and I have a very thought out, calculated answer with all the facts that I show in a PowerPoint presentation to just disprove the myth. And before I got a chance to answer, one guy pops up, and I don't judge a book by its cover, so I didn't make of him anything, but let's just say externally, he didn't look like a Hasidic Rebbe. He had some of the same features as a Hasidic Rebbe, but he didn't look exactly like it. He grew a beard, it just wasn't here, it was here. There were a few things that were a little different. He had some accessories. Most of them were in the versions of piercings. He had his things going on. And he pops up and he says, their service is they do a much better service than what we do. I'm like, what? He's going to go be my defender tonight? This is great. So I bring him right away up front and I said, come, you take the mic. I think you'll do a better job than me. And he starts telling his tale, his own personal life. He served in Israel in a big part of the time of his service was in Hebron. Sometimes in Kiryat Arba, other times stationed in other areas, but in that area. That's a dangerous area to be serving in. It's not fun. And he told countless stories, but the first one that comes to mind is that one afternoon they were standing, it was a hot day, and there's a group of them, 5 or 6 of them standing at a post, and a car pulls up, and when a car pulls up that post, they naturally don't feel so comfortable, they get ready, and they see religious guys. But today that's not a good enough thing to calm them down, because unfortunately we already had a few incidents, recently another one, of terrorists that dressed up like religious guys to be able to do what they want, to catch people off guard. But they're ready, but not, and then one of the guys comes out of the car, that gets them a little more nervous, and they see he's holding a box. In Israel, somebody holding a box, pulling up to an army post, that's normally not a good thing. He says, we were ready to shoot. And they warn him, there's some protocol what you have to do, so they warn him, he has to identify himself and put down the box. And the guy cooperates in 1 second, so they realize, wait a second, this guy's maybe is a religious guy. When they felt safe finally that he's an Israeli and he's a religious guy and a Jewish guy, that's all they really cared at that point, and he's not coming to blow himself up. So they go to him, they apologize, and they explain to him their discomfort, and I said, don't do that again, but what are you here for? So he said, I went to pray by Marat HaMachpelah. And on the way there, I saw you guys standing out here, and I felt terrible inside. I said, you're in the sun, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, you're wearing, I think they wear 37 pounds of gear on them all day. Imagine it's 90 degrees outside and sunny, you're standing outside for 8 hours with, besides the military clothes, which are not exactly that comfortable as it is, another 37 pounds of weight on you. Not a fun job. He said, and I'm driving in a brand new car with my friends, comfortable as could be, air conditioned, music on, and the only reason why I'm able to go safely is because you guys are standing out here. I said, so how's that fair? I said, so what can I do? Tell you thank you? That's almost an insult in relative to your sacrifice. I said, the least I can do is to make your day more pleasant. So I went into Kiryat Arba to a supermarket. I bought you guys everything that I was able to think of that you might like. Some of it's perishable, so you may want to open the box now. And the guy describes how they open a box, and in there, he says, his words were, Kol tuv sheba'olam. All the good in the world was there. There's anything from cold drinks to ice cream to food to this. He said one of the things that blew his mind away was there was 2 cartons of cigarettes and envelopes with money inside. He says, this is for you, so your day should go better. He leaves. And this kid looks at at the group there a few weeks ago, and he tells them, "You're saying they don't serve?" They're so sensitive to the tiniest thing that we have, that we need. Their sensitivities to us are unbelievable. And by the way, if any of you are going to Israel for Sukkot or anytime soon, which I hope we all are at one point or the other, when you see a soldier, say thank you. They deserve it. That's minimum decency. These are kids. That you're American and you don't have to serve in the Israeli army doesn't nullify you from the obligation to thank these kids that are risking their lives, their comforts, and everything else for the sake of protecting our borders and our towns, that we should be able to walk around safely. But when a soldier does it, does he think to himself, I'm doing the mitzvah of protecting another Jew? No. This is my job. This is what I got to do. It's mandatory draft. They psych him, protect Israel, so on, but that's the extent of it. So it's an amazing act, but that's called a mitzvah chitzonit, an external act. When does it become an internal act? When a person actually puts thought into the actions that he does. He says, I'm going to do this for the sake of a mitzvah. Meaning you could do the same exact action. And one has much more power, and one is great and amazing and admirable, but it has a little bit less of power. Comes to Ben TISHREY and says, every Jew has mitzvot. We always do good things. That's the way we are. We're naturally good people. We like helping, we like assisting, we like donating, we like doing the right thing. The average Jewish boy or girl doesn't sit alone Friday night because either he's invited out or he invites friends to him. And that has nothing to do with religion, even those that are not Shomer Shabbat. It's an amazing thing. We're natural givers. We're natural people that befriend others. He says, but not always do we think before we do or realize that we're actually going about doing a mitzvah. So that's called a mitzvah chitzonit. Comes to Ben TISHREY and says, when does a mitzvah get its full value? When it came out of thought. When it came for the right reasons, for the pure sake, because Hashem said to do it. Comes to Ben TISHREY and writes, that's why Melei mitzvot karimon. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells a person, you have a lot of mitzvot, but the reason why they're not winning over your avirot is because they're natural mitzvot that come to you without you thinking that you're doing a mitzvah. Squeeze it a little bit. Take advantage of it. You're already doing it. Think before you do. Realize what you're doing. Realize you're doing mitzvot, and then it'll get the dark color, it'll get the beauty of it, to have more power to outdo anything that would otherwise cause trouble. Okay. So he sees the swarms of white angels. And now the Baditcher is hoping that the white angels are going to be able to win the battle against the dark ones. But then he starts investigating a little more. And when he sees the numbers of the dark angels outnumber the white angels many, many, many times over. And here he gets a little scared. And the reason why it's like that is not because, God forbid, people are bad, but because to do many avirot in one sentence is very easy. To do many mitzvot in one sentence, unless you're actually studying Torah or something, is very hard. You talk Lashon Hara, every word is an avirah, 200 words a minute on average, Chafetz Chaim says. Imagine how many avirot the guy did in 1 minute. And each one could have up to 17 lavim inside of it, so it's 200 times 17 in 60 seconds over one stupid piece of gossip. So to accumulate swarms of dark angels is very quick. No. So now the Baditcher gets worried again. He's like, what am I going to tell God? I got to defend the Jews. We can't. This. And he says that as he's, whatever this means, if his soul was up there, I don't know what it means thinking, but as he was trying to figure out what he's going to tell God to defend the Jews, he pays attention to one more detail. That all the black angels are handicapped. And all the white angels look like strong, perfect people. And he says it's true that they have millions, but their quality and quantity, there's no comparison. The quality of strength of the white ones is so much stronger than the dark angels. And therefore, even if they're less, they will win. And he says that he saw the battle. And he saw the mitzvot winning. And he came down to the shul before Neilah, very happy, and he told the kahal, we're going to have a very, very good year. That's the way the story goes. Up to here is very nice, beautiful tale. Encouraging maybe a little bit too. But how does that work? Why are the angels that were created from the sins of the Jews all handicapped, and the angels that are created for the mitzvot of the Jews, all strong. So in previous classes, we explained that Chazal teaches that if a person does an Averah and he regrets it, or he feels guilty about it, or he has a second thought about it, which every Jew does in any situation, so automatically he wounds the bad angel that came out of the sin that he did. But if that's the case, that means that the Averah wasn't perfect. So as a result, what's the outcome? The angel from the Averah is a handicapped Averah. Many of our mitzvot are not perfect either. So maybe our mitzvot angels are going to be equally handicapped, and then we're back to square one, we're in trouble. So what makes that mitzvot that we do be strong angels, and the Averot that we do be weak angels? So even if, God forbid, a person has less mitzvot than Averot, he still has more zechuyot, as the Rambam writes in Hilchot Shuvah, merits, and that outweighs anything bad that he did. So to understand this, let's learn a little from the teachings of a great Kabbalist, Rabbi Yosef Gitlaya, if I pronounce that right, in the Sefer called Sha'arei Orah. In Sha'arei Orah and Sha'ar Bet Sfirat Tet, he writes something that technically can be extremely discouraging, but wait to the end so you don't get discouraged. He writes that if a person prayed, he went to synagogue, let's even say, best case scenario, went to synagogue, prayed with a minyan, everything. Sounds beautiful. But during his prayers, his mind was in all different places. He went on a little journey. Sometimes from the beginning of Amidah to the end, the Jew can, begin in Queens, go to Hong Kong, and come back. And that's in the best case scenario. So he writes that the person should be aware that the prayer, not only it won't be answered, it doesn't even reach God. It doesn't even get that high up. And he proves it from all different places, amongst them a pasuk. The pasuk teaches us in Yeshaya, Ani Hashem, Hu Shemi, Ukvodi la'acher lo eten. I, God, and that's my name, and I won't give my honor to others. Utihilati lifsilim, and my praises to whatever psilim means. Couldn't possibly mean statues. What does that mean? So he says psilim is minashon pasul. Pasul is not kosher. He says even when you say my praises, they could be praises that aren't kosher. Make sure you don't sing the wrong praise. What? How do you know that? He says that in Tehillim, for example, it says in Perikuf Bed, Pana el tfilat ha'arar, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a prayer that he calls arar. Arar is minashon irur. Irur is like a motion to reappeal. So you're asking for something, technically it should work, but now it doesn't work. It gets appealed in heaven. Why is it like that? Because the kavanah, the intent and the focus and the concentration of the prayer, when it was said, wasn't done the right way. And if you look over there, he goes on to saying, so too with all mitzvot. If that's the case, so it's bad news, right? That's why I said the beginning is going to sound very discouraging. Then all our mitzvot have arar in them, where, oh my God, what's going to be over here? So there's a beautiful response to that. In a wonderful sefer that Rav Valach wrote called Ma'ayan HaMoed, on the volume of the Yamim Noraim, he quotes from Rabbeinu Ari, based on a Tikkunei HaZohar, that he says, there's a solution. What's the solution? So he writes that the Ari explained, and we're going to break it down into terms that we understand. Sometimes a person does many mitzvot, but the mitzvot aren't so perfect. They're flawed. They don't go to waste. God keeps all those mitzvot. What does he keep them for? That if one day a person does the same mitzvah, let's say prayer, we use the example of prayer, we'll say, he prayed shacharit every morning, 365 days. But there was no kavanah there. So it's a prayer, but it's a prayer that's called an arar. There's a problem with it. Hashem, with his kindness, keeps all those prayers, and he waits for one day in a person's life that he said one shacharit, that's perfect. And the day he did that one day that he has a perfect shacharit, he takes all the other shacharits that he ever prayed in his life and says, you're up to par with this one, boom, and he sticks them all into Shamayim in one shot. That's like the idea of what we read in Kriyat Shema, Al Levavcha. You don't put something on your heart, you put it in your heart. What does it mean on your heart? That sometimes we hear Torah, but it doesn't affect us. But it doesn't go to waste. It stays on our heart, and one day when there is something that does open our heart up, everything we learned our whole life suddenly seeps in 1 second. Kind of the idea of why the Gemara teaches us that when a woman's pregnant, there's a angel that teaches the child the entire Torah. The ner daluk l'rosho, there's a candle lit by his head, and right before he's born, he forgets the whole Torah. What's the point in teaching him if he's going to forget it anyway? The answer is, so later on in life when he learns, it's so much easier for him. Because it's not learning something from scratch. He already learned it once. So it goes in a lot easier. Comes the Ari and says that when a person has one mitzvah that's a whole mitzvah, it takes in all those mitzvot of that category together in one shot and makes them all perfect. And that's the explanation in the story of the TISHREY Rebbe. It's true that our mitzvot are not perfect. But when it comes to Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, when it comes Yom Kippur, there is a moment throughout Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, Kippur, that people do more mitzvot and they do mitzvot for the right reasons. There is a moment that a person prays from his whole heart, pure. There is a moment that he's not distracted. And that moment takes everything he did, good the whole year, and elevates it. It's like an instant upgrade to everything. Unbelievable. Instant upgrade to everything. I'll give you a mashal. It was a mashal that was a true story, a lucky break that I got. I'm sitting on a flight one day, and we're going to Israel. So you know you got 10 and a half hours ahead. And it was me and a couple of friends, and it was a relatively empty flight. It was one of these random hour El Al flights, 2 a.m. from JFK. And there was just a handful of us sitting in business class. And all we want to do at that point is wait whatever amount of time to pray Shacharit and then just go to sleep. And right before takeoff, the flight attendant comes over to us and says, how many of you are there in total? We were sitting in one section. So I didn't understand, what does it mean of you in total? This sounded like some racial profiling. I said, who's the you and what's in it? He says, in this section. I said, count, I don't know, that's your job. Like, what do you want from me? So she says, don't be smart with me, I want to help you now. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I said, in my group, there's 6 of us. She says, that's it? I said, I don't know if there's anybody else sitting here. You have the seating list. But you want to know how many of my groups are going? She says, no, nobody else. It's only you guys. She says, you're all upgraded to first class. I said, you really helped us. Thank you very much. But to what do we deserve the honor? Elal is not known to give out free passes, that's for sure. There's normally a contingency. So she tells me an interesting thing. She says, this is a flight that has a lot of, what do they call birthright kids on it. And they're overbooked in economy. And now they're not going to put these kids in business because it's bad for their business model. They're not going to bump them because then they have to compensate them and then birthright gets upset. It's a good account, you don't want to lose. So when they have a business class that's not full, they split it into 2. One of them they open up and make it as if it's economy and take their premium flyers and leave them there. It's called business class seating with economy service. And the people that were sitting there, they move up another cabin because if you already paid this, so that justifies it at least. That's the business model. So on no merit, other than something being, somebody else needing a seat, we benefited. That's what Ari says. Sometimes you don't have merits that are perfect. But if there's something else, there's one mitzvah that now makes that we need space for this mitzvah, because this is a perfect mitzvah, so that pushes you all up. It upgrades everybody in one shot and makes all your mitzvot perfect. So when the TISHREY Rebbe saw that the mitzvot of Am Yisrael were flawless, it's because they were flawless. It's because throughout the year there was the one mitzvah of each category that a person did, that he did it in the best way. Sometimes we're in a situation that we have a dilemma if to invite somebody, let's say for a Shabbat or not. It's a little hard, it's whatever, it's bad timing, and we do it anyway. And that person, let's say, doesn't have the merit to be so observant. And of course, we would love that maybe something about the Shabbat impacts them. But in reality, it doesn't. You should know that's a big mistake. automatically it did impact them. Why? Because just the fact that they were in your house and ate glad kosher food for Shabbos, that already makes the neshama on a higher level. That alone is the success. That alone. That's all. Just that alone is already a success. Amazing. The Averot, on the other hand, nobody does an Averah Lishma. Nobody sits and says, L'Shem Yichud, I'm going to do a sin. That doesn't exist. So if you do a mitzvah lishma and you don't do an averah lishma, then all your averot end up handicapped, and your mitzvot end up perfect. And perfect mitzvot have the power to kill handicap averot. This is already ammunition. Now we're coming with good ammo towards Yom Kippur. And could be that's why it says in halacha that even though somebody doesn't keep Pat Yisrael the whole year, and I said Tishrei Tshuva, he should keep Pat Yisrael. What do you mean? It was a joke? 10 days, we're going to go keep. So there's many explanations on this. But this year, based on this idea, we could say a simple thing. Because I'm not talking about milk, I'm talking about bread now. Pat. I was very cautious with my words. Pat akum, or pat palter, not pat akum, pat palter, which is commercial bread, OU bread. During the year, you're allowed to eat, there's no issue. The Gemara says they nullified the Gzerah, pat akum, or whatever. Could eat it. But there is those that are machmir not to, especially those that go more with Kabbalah, because there are reasons not to, spiritually. But beyond that, that's what. So if I said it, you made tshuva, you only ate Pat Yisrael, so now your kosher bread that you ate the whole year elevated to a Pat Yisrael level. You gave all your eating the whole year an upgrade. And the same thing with every category of mitzvot. At Yom Kippur, when people come to shul, there's no cell phones. So, not that I'm justifying bringing a cell phone into a shul. Honestly, it's really wrong. It's really wrong. But it's a battle that I'm scared I won't win, so I don't elaborate on it a lot, because mutav sheyu shogegim ba'al yom mezidim. I remember one year, I think it was 2 years ago over here, we had a group of guys that agreed to, until after Sukkot, to shut their phone off, at least, when they come into shul. And they stuck to it. It's amazing. But it wasn't easy. To us, our phones is our lives. Somebody called me while I was on the way here, and I told them, listen, I can't talk to you now, only after the shiur. It's going to be very late because I got a lot going on. And he tells me, you can call me until 3:30 a.m. tonight. So I told him why. He says, because he has to wait up until 3 o'clock in the morning to pre-order the iPhone. So if he has to wait up until 3 a.m. to pre-order the iPhone, so then obviously to tell him to leave it in his car when he comes to shul, it might be a safek pikuach nefesh for him already. It's dangerous. You can't expect that anymore. But on Kippur, nobody walks into shul with a cell phone. So at least it rectifies, in one way or the other, all the prayers that the head was in the phone instead of in the prayer. It's a big limud zchut Am Yisrael. It's very, very encouraging. Unbelievable thing. And with that, we come to Hashem, and we have to sincerely be able to say that A, we do try sometimes to do things in a perfect way, and B, we don't do sin in a perfect way. We're mehader with the etrog, but we're not mehader with our averot. And that's gives a very, very big case. But in order for this case to work, I try to be as optimistic as I can because I think it's the only way today. That's the need of the generation. But unfortunately, sometimes they also need a reality check. So the reality check is very simple. I have an acquaintance that's a judge. Not in some prestigious federal court. He's a traffic judge. And no, he didn't become my acquaintance because of traffic violations. He was originally an attorney. He worked in a firm that I was affiliated with for business reasons. Then he wanted to be a judge. That was his craze, even though it's a fraction of the salary and everything else. But he had this thing that he wanted. But he became a traffic attorney. And in upstate New York, out of all places. He even moved from where he was living to the place. And I once was chit-chatting with him, and I told him, how do you decide? Because the judge has a lot of power. The sentencing guidelines are very broad in situations. So anything from dismissing a case all the way to max sentence on a case, that's a very big spectrum. So I said, how do you decide when you throw the book at a guy and when you let the guy off the hook. So he says that many, many factors have to be taken into consideration. Circumstances, negligence, history, if somebody's first traffic offense, he says, I'm not going to do it. People make mistakes. If somebody has 30 tickets that year, it's, he doesn't learn, so we got to throw the book at him. All different factors like that. And then he told me two more interesting factors. And later on I discussed this with lawyers, people that are on the legal defense side, and they said, yeah, it's a known thing. Every judge is like that. Every normal judge, they told me. I don't know what that means. I guess maybe there's some that aren't, but whatever. One is, if a guy gets onto a stand or whatever by his trial, and he shows regret, he says automatically I become much more sympathetic towards him. And the second is, if I see that he owns up to his mistake completely and knows the law going forward. And he explained me the concept very simply. He told me to give somebody a free pass once makes sense, because people make mistakes and we should be sympathetic. But if the guy doesn't know how to do it right, so he's going to be back in my court tomorrow anyway, because whether he likes it or not, he doesn't know the right thing to do. So at that point, I can't give him a free pass. I got to make sure he learns. But if I see he knows and he owns up to his mistake and he feels bad that he did it, and mistakes happen, so I try to let him go. And if the guidelines of sentencing doesn't allow me to dismiss it, so I make it as lenient as could possibly be. When he told me that, it was a while ago, I told him that he's going to make it to one of my speeches during the Aseret Yimei Tshuva. He's a Jew, this guy. Maybe in the schut of this story, if we'll get chizuk from it, Hashem will help to do tshuva also. So he says, what are you quoting me for? So I told him, I said, you're going to be the theme of the speech. I said, we all go to a court on Yom Kippur, and it's Judgment Day, and we get sentenced. I said, and I think we're going to work with your sentencing guidelines. Because I think that's the way God works. I said, if we come to court and we own up to our mistakes, and that's what vidui is really, right? We elaborate many times over throughout the season on our mistakes. We show regret, then God becomes very sympathetic towards us. And naturally he wants to say, salachti. But, and here's the clause, and really this is what I'm here for tonight, that you know the rules going forward. If you don't know the rules going forward, so who are you fooling? God, give me a free pass, let it go, but I don't even know what I'm going to do different tomorrow. I have no clue. That's a joke already. That doesn't mean anything. Therefore, many people, it goes through their mind, what's the right thing to take upon myself? It's a new year, and I can't stress enough, make sure what you take is something very small, because if it'll be big, you won't last even 3 days. Well, maybe 3 yet. 5 days. The Torah says that Sukkot is called Rishon Lecheshbon Avonot, because by then, business is back to usual, unfortunately. But maybe this is something that you should consider. Learning halacha, and this applies to everybody, boys and girls alike. Everybody's obligated to know halacha. At least you can come to God on Kippur and say, it's true, I might not know the laws, but going forward I'm going to start learning them. And I'll get more familiar with them. And you can learn even one halacha every day or whatever it is. It accumulates so quickly, it's unbelievable the amount of knowledge you can gain from a 1 or 2 minute investment a day. And simple, easy, consistent, accessible in so many different ways. Obviously, halacha, you have to have a reliable, consistent source that you're learning from. It's not everybody's qualified to teach halacha. But when you have a source like that, in a matter of a minute or two a day, you can really build up a repertoire. And then you come to Hashem with a solid case. Like, God, yeah, I make many mistakes. Many, many mistakes. But I have a plan of action. And maybe that's why it says, Kol hashomeh, Tana Devei Eliyahu, Kol hashomeh halachot b'chol yom. Halachot is plural, so I guess 2 halachot a day. Muftach lo shehu ben olam haba. He's guaranteed to go to Gan Eden. Because at that point, Hashem says, okay, you're working on it, so even if you didn't get there, at least you had the right intentions. At least you had a realistic plan. And welcome to Gan Eden, come. And I think this is really a simple idea that can be very, very productive to all of us and can benefit us greatly when it comes to Shana, Kippur, Sukkot, and so on, to go through these days b'simcha and to come out okay. And it goes to the point, in halacha it says that if one didn't see his friend for 30 days, a real friend, then he says a bracha, shechianu. Today, for some reason, the olam is not noheg to that, maybe because the title friend is used for the wrong reasons. But in halacha, there is such a thing. I saw Gdolei Yisrael do it. And if he didn't see his friend for 12 months, he says mechayeh hametim. This is an halacha. Today we don't do that because we have means of being in touch with somebody without seeing them. So it might not be considered that we don't see them. But assuming there was no mean of being in contact with somebody, we say mechayeh hametim. Mechayeh hametim is a blessing that we say in our prayers as a prayer, and it's a blessing that one day we'll make when Hashem does tchiyat hametim, inshallah b'meirav yamenu, and all the Jews come back to life. There'll be a blessing of praise at that point instead of a prayer. Baruch mechayeh hametim. Why do you say mechayeh hametim when you don't see a friend for 12 months? So the poskim write that if you didn't see a friend for 12 months, so by default it had to be that there was a Rosh Hashanah Kippur in the middle. And Rosh Hashanah Kippur, Sifrei Chaim U'Meitim Ptuchim. The books of the living and the dead are open in front of God. So that means technically your friend could have been dead. You could have been dead. So now you saw somebody who was at the risk of death who is alive. So you say mechayeh hametim. Understand what's at stake? In halacha, it would say to make a blessing, mechayeh hametim, on a person, just because Rosh Hashanah Kippur went by. That means technically, obviously it's not a halacha, but just on the hypothetical part, we could almost say hagomel after Rosh Hashanah Kippur. The only reason why we don't is because we don't know what the outcome is until next Rosh Hashanah, and by then it's too late. When do you know what happened Rosh Hashanah? A year later, the eve of Rosh Hashanah. That's when you know what happened last year Rosh Hashanah. So you can't say hagomel at that point, it's too late already. But otherwise, if a person survived the year, lived through the year, yeah, he should say hagomel. Just like on the flip side, it could have been the other way. There's a lot at stake here. So obviously, it's worth a minor investment in advance to be an insurance policy of protecting a great disaster later on, God forbid, should never happen. Or without great disasters, forget about the negative. To better, everybody wants a better quality of life. We always aspire to have a nicer house, a nicer car, nicer clothes, nicer this, nicer that, everything nicer. A bank account with more money, not less, so on. We always want more. So the same thing. Baruch Hashem, let's say this past year overall was okay. Ken yitem, chen yosif, we want better, bigger and better. There's nothing wrong with that, that's great. But it got to go hand in hand with an actual action plan. And it's almost a plea that everybody should really give it a minute to think and say, can I maybe commit to learning some halacha this year? Speeches and this and that, it's all important. I'm not downplaying it. See, I'm doing it. But that's not the goal. That's the medium to get to the goal. The goal is the action, what comes out of it. If you don't know, you can't do it. It's just by default. If you know, you could do. Now to go commit to learn 2 hours a night, I wish, but I'm practical. But 1 or 2 minutes a day, that much I think is possible already. Well, there's so many outlets. I'm not here to promote anybody, so I'm not going to give options. Each one should figure it out. There's so many different ways. You can buy different Sfarim, books in English, and this, that, whatever. Each one, you just got to make sure you're learning from a reliable source. And it's amazing how much knowledge a person gains from just this alone. I'll tell you, not even on a daily basis, just from personal experience, I have different unique learning studies, we'll call them chavutot, with different people in the world, that over the years I accumulated, and the repertoire, Baruch Hashem, is getting bigger. And they're not long, because I don't have much time, but I have this one gentleman, for example, it's going to be almost 10 years now, that we learn somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes once a week on the phone. He's a very, very famous doctor in the world. And we actually learn halacha. It used to be that I used to teach him one halacha because he didn't know anything, but now I think he could teach me, but one way or the other. And over the years, the amount of clarification that I gained for myself on subjects out of talking to him, because he would challenge me on things and say, wait a second, how does that make sense? How does that fit with something we learned a few months ago? Is unreal. And that's from what, 3, 4, 5 minutes a week? Now imagine that's done more. It's a wealth of knowledge that just grows and grows and grows. And if it's done on multiple occasions, or if you have something interesting, you share it with others, so now you just benefit many other people too. And this is the Yetzer Hara's biggest fight, is that people shouldn't know halacha, because if you know halacha, he loses. Because when you know halacha, you're not going to do certain things. That's just the way it is. I got a great one. I was going from Frankfurt to Tel Aviv on an El Al flight a few months ago, and a gentleman is sitting near me. And I was reading a sefer, Chazon Ovadia. I had a volume that was with me, and I was reading it on the plane. And he turns to me and he asks me if I know the dynamics of the kashrut on the plane or whatever. I'm not taking responsibility of somebody else's kashrut. I told him I plead the fifth on the whole subject. So do what you understand. I was trying to gently tell him that he may want to be a little cautious with what's going on, because it's not a New York route that we know exactly what's going on. In Europe, it's more complicated to keep the standards. Then he turns to me and he asks me, what do you think? The wine, if it's not mevushal and the flight attendant's not religious, is it yain nesech or not? I said, I told you, I'm not your posek. I plead the fifth. So he tells me, you telling me not to drink? I said, I plead the fifth. So there are opinions like this, there are opinions like that. You have a posek, you have to know what your posek holds. You can't go by my opinion, what does it make a difference what I think? All right, he's quiet. Then he turns to me and he says, can I borrow your sefer? I had shut the sefer a few minutes later, put it in the thing, I wanted to doze off. And my eyes were half open, half closed. Can I borrow the sefer? I said, gladly. He opens up the sefer, and the page that opens up randomly was Ovadia writing the halacha of Mechalel Shabbat. If he touches wine, it's not mevushal. What's the halacha? And he tells me, your own sefer says it. Why, you couldn't tell me? I said, no, because now you see that it's important to own a sefer and to learn it. So maybe now in the future you'll know something. We exchanged phone numbers. We befriended each other there after that incident, because it was a cool story. And he tells me all the time. He says, you should know, I learn Chazon Ovadia like daily now. You don't understand. He says, part of my life. I have a set in the office, I have a set at home, and whenever I have extra time, automatically, boom, I open the sefer. He says, there's so many things I didn't know. I said, good morning. I said, I learned Shulchan Aruch many times, and there's still so many things I didn't know. Because even after you learn it, it's always hard to remember everything, and even if you do remember, maybe you understood something wrong, and the second time you learn it, you suddenly realize there's a different way to understand it, and it goes on and on and on. A boy told me on Rosh Hashanah, I was trying to convince him into this idea that he should learn halacha. So he said, where do you think I should start from? So I told him, learn Hilchot Brachot. I don't know why. I guess because my association was the first Masechet in Gemara and Shas Brachot, so I thought Hilchot Brachot, good place to start. So he tells me, nah, that's a waste of time. I said, first of all, be careful how you talk about Hashem's Torah. But why? What's your problem with Hilchot Brachot? He said, that every kid knows. I learned that in preschool. I don't need to learn Hilchot Brachot. I said, there's thousands and thousands of pages of Sfarim written every year until today on Hilchot Brachot. And you're telling me you don't have to learn it? Come on. Get with the program. So he says, he says, you want to test me? So I said, yeah, it was on the stairs. We were walking down into this room because we prayed here in Rosh Hashanah. I said, yeah, I want to test you. So he says, go right ahead. What do you want to know? So I told him, what blessing do you make on orange juice? And he says, you're making a fool out of me? At least ask me a hard one. I said, no, answer. So he tells me, what do you mean, Shako? What's the question? I said, I think you should start learning Hilchot Brachot. So he said, what are you talking about? I said, remind me after the prayer, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So he reminded me. I took out a Chazon Ish and I showed him the Chazon Ish writes that on orange juice you should make chayetz. Now we don't go like that, la halacha, most people at least. But the Chazon Ish does say so. And I explained to him what the Chazon Ish's case. which Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes in the Chazon Ish's case, if not for the fact that it already became customary that everybody makes shakol, really the Chazon Ish is right and we would have to change it for everybody. The reason why a fruit loses its level of blessing when it gets squeezed, we're not talking about wine, other fruits, and it goes from ha'etz to shakol, ha'adama to shakol if it's a vegetable, is because this is more important and this is less important. But if something's grown for the intent of doing something with it, then it doesn't lose its blessing anymore, according to the Gemara. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of the facts of agriculture, but the orange juice that we drink that's commercially sold is not random oranges. They grow oranges specially for the purpose of squeezing them. And that's the way it was in the days of the Chazon Ish as well. It's not a new thing. And based on that, the Chazon Ish says you have to make ha'etz. And really, those who go like the minagim of the Chazon Ish, make ha'etz on oranges. If you ever see a guy with a cup of oranges saying ha'etz, don't think that he's wrong. Know that he's actually a Talmid Chacham. He might know more than you know. Did you see that? A simple drink that you drink every morning, you couldn't tell me a straight answer. Maybe it's time to learn. Chod Bachot so long and complicated, and there's so many details and so much to know. There's no end to it. And it's worth it. And like this, you come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you say, Baruch Shalom, what was. Bygones are bygones, we say. But at least I have some sort of care, some sort of strategy, some sort of plan going forward. And not with everything. You're not going to be a tzaddik overnight. It doesn't happen. And don't fool yourself, because if you fool yourself that you will, then it's really a waste of time. But at least in some areas, you start learning a little more, you know a little better, you become second nature, you do things the right way. You might also reveal that along the way, so many things you do anyway are really very big mitzvah. And I end off with a big prayer / blessing / wish to everybody. The great tzaddik, the Yismach Moshe, writes an unbelievable thing. He gives a mashal. He says if a person on a regular day was in the middle of doing whatever he's doing, and he was eating also, and something spilled on him, he got a little stain on his clothes. He says, how's he going to respond? So of course nobody's excited to get dirty, right? But at the end of the day, what's the response going to be? So he makes an interesting observation. He says it depends where he has to go after that. So if he's going home, it's a big deal. He's at the end of his workday. Who's going to see him already? That's a tiny stain. He'll give it a quick rub with the first tissue he finds, and he'll go home, he'll change. But what happens if he's on his way to work? And now he's on his way to work. He's some prestigious lawyer who has to go try a very famous case that the whole media is going to be there, and he has to stand in front of a judge, and his white shirt just got stained. Because at that point, rubbing with a tissue and leaving some marks of the stain ain't going to work. You can't walk into court like that. So he has to stop and either find the dry cleaners, or find a new shirt, or find a solution. What's the difference? He says in one case, it's he got dirty. The other case, he got dirty. It's very simple. It depends where you're going, is what level your performance has to be at. It depends what you're doing is what level somebody's a painter, and by the way, a little tchina from his falafel spilled on his shirt, so his whole clothing is paint. Yeah, a little more tchina also, a new style of life. But if somebody has to go in front of a king or or for an important meeting, and now he has to stand on his shirt, that's already a crisis. That's a problem. He says the neshama is 100% pure. There's no stains on the neshama. But the neshama has a levush, a cover, and that a person's sins can stain. He says a hirur tshuva, just thinking a little bit tshuva, that alone erases it. But he says that's like a tissue that you just rubbed off the stain. But there's still some markings left. It's good, it's a big step, but there's still a marking left. He says HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Am Yisrael, you do that part at least, do yours, that's your part, and I'll give you back a big favor. And that's my blessing. What do we say on Kippur? Lifnei Hashem titaru. That your levush for your neshama should be so pure and so clean that it even qualifies going in front of a king, and not just any king. Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'chvodo V'atzmo. Because Baruch Hu should help that we should come into Yom Kippur Lifnei Hashem titaru. That God Himself should give us the stamp of approval that we got to that level of Lifnei Hashem. One quick announcement: Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, on Monday night, Tuesday night, the night before Kippur, Monday night, we're going to have slichot here. We're going to have a class here at 11:30 p.m. Hatarat Klalot 12:20 a.m. followed by Slichot, just like we did at Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah was very nice and meaningful, and Be'ezrat Hashem we should be able to replicate it. If anybody, I can't stress enough, kaparot is not done on chickens. There's a huge issue with that. We don't do it that way, period. And even if you did it that way the previous years, you have to stop it. There's issues of tzar ba'alei chayim, darkei mori, and the biggest issue, which is really why I'm saying this, even though a lot of Ashkenaz rabbis get very upset when I say this, but I respect them and they respect me. We're entitled to our opinions. The situation of the shchita, what they do with these chickens afterwards, in the best case scenario, it goes to the garbage because at least they're not feeding not kosher. But otherwise, there's no way, there's no control, there's no system. It's a real hefkerut. I'm not saying everybody. In certain areas, they have something with a good hechsher. But in general, the mass production kapara. So what's a kapara now? It's just bringing more sin now. Therefore, Chamavadi already said this years ago. There's no question that we do kapara using money, and the money does not go to synagogues or to yeshivot or whatever. That's not where it goes to. It goes to feed the poor. That's the idea behind it. That brings you a kapara. So it's a simple mitzvah, it's an easy thing to do, simple minhag, whatever, however you want to title it. It's an easy thing to do. You don't have to go to some chickens, no excuse, you're not scared of animals. And people ask how much money, I said, think how many sins you did, and based on that.